Hello everyone and welcome to Deakin College. Today we'll be having an information session regarding the Diploma of Information Technology, which will be led by our academic course coordinator, Owen. Before we do get started, I just have some housekeeping to take care of first. So while Owen is presenting, there will be myself and Casey to answer any questions that you have throughout the presentation. If you wish to ask those questions, you can either use the Q&A section on the tab, or you can also put them in the chat to us. Some of the questions we may leave until the end because we do have an open question and answer time with Owen as well to be able to assist with some of those questions. So I won't hold you up any longer. I'll pass now over to Owen to lead today's session. Thanks, Owen.
No worries. Thanks, Dan. So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you're all well, and let's get started. So let's do a quick rundown of the topics we're going to go through. We're going to talk a bit about the diploma and what it is and what it means to be a pathway to the university. We're going to talk about studying online at Deakin College. We'll talk about some of the specific units in the diploma. And then I'll recommend some for selection, some good ones to do starting off. And then at the end, we'll cover some common questions. And then as Dan noted, at the very end, I can answer more of your specific questions. So you can ask them along the way in the chat. And then at the end, we'll kind of go through them all together. So the Diploma of Information Technology is a pathway into Deakin University. So what does that mean? Well, there are 3 Deakin University Bachelors, and the Diploma of IT acts as a pathway into one of those, and you choose which one you want. That will be on your offer. So we'll go through those specific ones later. Let's talk a bit more about what the diploma means in general toward that. The diploma effectively covers the fundamentals of IT. So things like data, algorithms, what is information, cybersecurity, programming, all of that. But more than that, you learn how to logically deconstruct problems and determine relevant IT solutions. That's kind of what we do in IT overall, is we identify problems and we find a way to solve it. So there are 14 units that we offer in the Diploma of IT. I'm going to not go through all of them, but I'll touch upon the key points, and then later on, I'll talk about some more specific ones. So we cover topics like programming and algorithms. So effectively how to talk to computers and instruct them to do things. We talk about data and information. So data is like raw facts, and information is like processed data that is meaningful to us. We talk about critical thinking. Part of problem solving means being able to take a problem and figure out exactly what you're trying to solve. That's an important skill to develop. We talk about cloud computing, and we talk about cybersecurity. When we're dealing with networks of computers, how do we prevent unauthorized access? We talk about web development. We talk about making responsive web apps, interesting web applications that people can use. And we also talk about more creative areas like game fundamentals, where you make video games, or say creative technologies, where you look at interesting combinations of technology in IT. And we also talk about careers in IT and where you can go. And then also some maths that we do as well. Those are the units on the bottom. So now we can talk a bit more about the bachelors. So I said there were 3 bachelors that you can transfer into, that you can choose. So there is the Bachelor of Information Technology, which you can think of as a bachelor if you want a general career in IT. So there are particular majors though. So application development. So if you want to make applications for phone or for the web, that's a good one. Cloud computing, effectively if you want to run software like on a server, so on a cloud, then that's a good one to do. Creative technologies, again, being innovative with IT technology and putting it together to make interesting things. Game development, making video games, designing games, developing them, programming them. Cybersecurity, protecting against unauthorized access to computer networks and systems. And virtual and augmented reality. So kind of making immersive 3D worlds and programming those. But maybe you want something more specialized, in which case you could do, say, a Bachelor of Computer Science. You think of it like this, that a Bachelor of IT will kind of be a good path to take if you want to get a general job in IT. But if you, say, want to learn more about how computers work and you want to push computers to do things they haven't done before, then computer science is a good path to take for that. Or you could do cybersecurity, which again is more specialized toward preventing unauthorized access and is a really big growing industry. A common question is, whether people should take the major in Bachelor of IT for cybersecurity or take the Bachelor of Cybersecurity itself. And it depends how much you want to specialize in it. But if you have questions about that, we can talk more about those later. So some of the outcomes you'll get from these bachelors are data, or rather career paths, I should say, so possible career choices you could take, is you could, say, manage databases and manage information systems. So think of that like there's a lot of data to store for an institution and you're kind of responsible for keeping that together and keeping that organized. Game development, as I mentioned, is a possible, there's possible units you can take toward that, and that's a possible path you could do, particularly more toward game programming. There's mobile application or iOS development. So if you want to make applications for phones, that could be a possible career pathway you could take. Web programming and design, you might really like web pages or developing web pages, and that's a pathway you could go through too. And then the last three kind of are associated as far as cryptography, which is like how to encrypt data and protect it. And that goes into cybersecurity of how we prevent unauthorized access. And normally that comes down to networking when you've got a network of computers. So all of those skills, there's a bit of overlap between them and there are careers in those three things. So how long does the course go for? Typically, it'll go for 12 months. That is 3 trimesters. However, there is an option to fast track the course and complete it in 2 trimesters. That's 8 months. However, to complete the course in 8 months, you would have to do 4 units a trimester to complete the 8, which is a lot to do. So you just need to be very disciplined if you're going to do that. Normally, we recommend that you do the normal track, which is 8 units over 3 trimesters. So that's usually, well, that's the 3 in the first trimester, 3 in the second, 2 in the last. Students can take a maximum of 4 units in a trimester. And I mention that because on occasion I get super eager students who are like, can I do 5? And I'm like, I really admire that, but that's a bit too much for anyone. So 4 is the maximum. Now, there are a couple of conditions to be aware of to transfer to the university. So the first one is that you must complete and pass 8 units. Now, on occasion, students will complete 7 and they'll ask, hey, can I transfer early? And the answer is no, you must complete 8. That's a very specific requirement. The second requirement is that you require a weighted average mark across all of your units of at least 50%. So that's for all attempted units. So effectively, if you pass all your units, then you can transfer to Deakin. But if, say, something went wrong and you didn't pass a unit, then we'd have to look at your WAM and consider whether you still meet the WAM requirements. But the bottom line is you need to have a WAM of 50 or above, an average grade of 50 or above. We hold transferring sessions or information sessions about transferring to Deakin each trimester, usually a little bit toward the end. Okay, let's talk a bit more about online study at Deakin College and what that involves. So we use the platform Zoom to conduct our online classes. The way that works is when we create a Zoom room, which is effectively like your virtual classroom, we create a link to access it. Now we place that link on Moodle, which is our learning management system where we put all of our course data, and we put that in a place at the top under a dedicated class link section where it's easy to access. We go through a little bit more of that in a moment. Effectively, it's very easy to find your class links. For your particular class, you will only see the links that are relevant to you. So when you go to your Moodle page and you look at your class link section, there'll be just your classes available, so you'll know exactly which ones to access. So as an example, on Moodle, you'll see kind of a list of tiles for all of your different classes kind of on your starting dashboard. And when you click on it, there'll be a section labeled something along the lines of class links, or in this case, online classroom. And then it'll have clearly labeled what day and time the class is, and then what link to access that. So in this case, class 1 is at this time, and then there's a Friday one later as well. But you'll only see the ones that are relevant to you. Now, in regard to Moodle and how class content is organized, generally speaking, we have all the assessment material and class material at the very top of the Moodle page, so you can access that very easily. And then after that, we kind of break down the content by weeks and all the topics by weeks. So if we were to open up any given week, it will be broken down further into before class activities, during class activities, and after class activities. And the way you can think of this is that before class activities kind of prepare you for class, so that when you do your session with your teacher and your classmates, you kind of hit the ground running. You've got all the material you need to get into it immediately and learn as much as you can about the deeper concepts. At the during class, we have our during class activities. That's where you actually get into the meat of it. And then in the after class activities, that's where you effectively do some homework tasks that will help cement that knowledge in your mind and help you learn it. Now, one of the best things about Deakin College and about the pathway into the university is that we provide a lot of support. So for example, and we touch upon this more in a moment, we have small class sizes. That means that there's more time to speak to your teacher. The teacher for your class is effectively the only person you need to speak to. They will teach both of your 2-hour blocks. They will also mark your assessments. And so if you have any questions at all, that teacher is the person you can speak to about any concerns you have. And because the class sizes are small, normally each student knows the teacher and can speak to them, and everybody kind of knows each other's names. It's fairly cordial. So teachers normally have scheduled drop-in times, but as an additional help, we also have an online booking tool for teachers to see them for consultations. So it's really great. If you have any struggles, you can go to this online booking tool. You can find a day that suits you, check if your teacher's available, and if they're available at that day, you can choose a time and then book in to see them for, say, 15, 30 minutes, an hour to get help with your assessments. And it makes it really easy to get support if you have any questions at all. Additionally, you can speak to teachers after the class. So if the teacher has a little bit of time, you can stay behind and ask them questions then. But there's plenty of opportunity to speak to teachers one-on-one and get that individual help. We also have academic learning advisors or student learning advisors who run workshops and provide advice on general academic skills, such as referencing or essay writing. So there's support you can get from them one-on-one to build up your academic skills. And another really good measure is we have student learning mentors. These are students who have completed their studies at the college and transferred successfully to Deakin University. And now they help us out in a support fashion. They see students and they provide them advice from a student perspective. So it's a really great support. And between all three of these, you have a lot of support mechanisms to help you if you're struggling with any of your assessments. Now, in regard to assessments, they differ a bit from unit to unit, but typically there'll be case studies, assignments, or online quizzes. All assessment submissions are made online using Moodle, and your teachers will help you develop the skills leading up to those assessments. So typically, for any given assessment, the weeks leading up to that, all the skills you learn in those weeks build up to that particular assignment. In regard to exams, exams are all 2 hours and 15 minutes long. So that's 2 hours writing time, 15 minutes reading time, and are all conducted online. Okay, So let's talk about some recommended units you should take when if you enroll later on. So in our October intake. So the first one is Introduction to Programming. To be clear, programming is effectively giving computers instructions so they can perform tasks. To put it more generally, it's kind of like speaking to computers, you know. Whether you choose to be a programmer or not, understanding the key concepts of programming is fundamental to being an IT professional and getting a career in IT. A lot of the ideas in programming will pop up in other areas, so it's really, really good to take that first and early. With this unit specifically, one of the nice things we do is we teach a lot of the general concepts without getting stuck on a particular language. Because when we talk to computers, similar to speaking to other people in real life, there are multiple different languages we could use to do it. So rather than kind of sticking to a particular language, instead, we teach the general ideas of programming such that you can take those and apply them to any language. And that gives a lot of freedom once you go to the university and once you start your career in IT. Thinking Technology and Design, which is effectively a critical thinking unit that develops your skills in that area. Why is that important? Well, I mentioned before that IT effectively deals with deconstructing problems and then kind of finding IT solutions. And to do that, you need to be able to think critically. For example, you might understand how to write code, but being able to write code and thinking about what is the logical solution to a problem are two different things. So this is a fundamental set of skills that we teach and that you can develop. And by developing these will be useful for any other unit you do within IT. Data capture technologies. So data is a central concept in information technology. I mentioned before that data is like raw facts. And what we do is we take data and we process it into information. And information is something that is meaningful for us. So data would be like taking a spreadsheet of numbers and transforming it into a graph that we can easily read. And the graph is like the information. So that's kind of what the terms mean. So a good way of learning that is to learn about how we can capture data. And that's what this unit focuses on. We live at a time where we have lots of devices that can capture data in interesting ways. So for example, your phone can capture a lot of different pieces of data. It can capture light through its camera. It can capture audio through its microphone. It can capture motion through, I think it's its gyroscope. And it can capture your location on Earth through the GPS tracker. So we could capture that data and we could do something with it. We could collect all of it and then analyze it and maybe do something interesting or learn about what we could do with it. And that's exactly what this unit does, is it gets you thinking about what kind of data you can collect, how to analyze it, and then thinking about what you could do with that data. For example, like you could detect motion on a device, and then could you link that to like, you could imagine kind of, could you link that to a door to make the door open or something like that, or turn on the heater when you get home? That's kind of the kind of things you think about in the unit. We go through examples using Arduino boards, which are like little circuit boards, and we have a virtual kind of simulation of that to help show how that works here. Exploring IT. So this unit does two things. One is it builds your skills by teaching some web development, but it does something else which is particularly important. It focuses a lot on IT careers and being an IT professional. So there are a lot of different careers in IT, and this unit explicitly gets you thinking about what kind of career do you want and how best can you move toward that? Like what information should you put out there? What skills should you develop? And all of that is toward the goal of being an IT professional. An IT professional isn't just somebody who knows about IT topics. They're someone who focuses on developing their skill and who are disciplined, has standards, and are very focused on particular career goals. So this unit gets you thinking about that, about what kind of career you want, and then what it means to be a professional in that field. Okay, so frequently asked questions. All right, so a common one I get is, how do I purchase textbooks? First of all, not all textbooks are required in all units. There are only, I think, about 4 or so that require textbooks, but all of those required readings can be purchased as ebooks or borrowed from the Deakin Library, so they're readily accessible online. What programs or equipment will I need to complete my studies? You will need a computer or a laptop with internet access. So nothing necessarily too fancy, but you will need something to at least be able to write documents. Typically using like Microsoft Office type packages is what you'd commonly be doing. In some units, there might be some special software, but typically it's all either readily accessible once you're enrolled in the college, or it's free to get anyway. You'll also need a webcam for your classes so that we can interact with you and see you to help improve the teaching. What does the timetable look like is another question. All classes are between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. And we do this to kind of, as much as possible, make classes at a good time for wherever you might be accessing it from. I mentioned earlier about class sizes. We have a cap of 30 for class sizes. So classes are small, and that means we can provide more support and give you more time. When can you enroll? You can enroll into the Diploma of IT on the 12th of October, and all students who have accepted their place will receive an email in regard to how to enroll. You can enroll on your own, or if you need help, you can attend a session where we can assist you with your enrollment. So I mentioned earlier in regard to this question, how to access my online classes. Those class links are available at the top of your course page, so they're easily accessible. Like I said, 30 students in all classes, that's for every diploma, and IT is included in that. Now, a very common one, and it's one that we need to consider, is what happens if, say, you're studying and you struggle and you happen to fail a unit? First of all, I hope that doesn't happen, and leading up to it, speak to us and we'll support you as much as we can. But in the event that does happen, you can repeat the unit the following trimester, but we might speak to you just to help you and provide you some support. And what is the structure of trimester 3? Let's run through that a little bit on the next slide. So Deakin College runs on a 12-week, well, technically 13-week trimester, but we have 12 weeks of content, and then the 13th week is exams. So we'll start on the 26th of October. We will have a trimester break towards the end of December, and which will go until early January. And then week 12 ends on the 29th of January, and exams will begin in early February. So that's the general structure of trimester 3. Okay, so that covers all of the key points. Thank you so much for listening. Are there any questions? Dan, were there any questions that came up?
Sure, thanks, Owen. There was a question that did pop in there. However, I will just invite everyone, if you do have any questions, please either pop them in the chat to us, or we can also answer them through the Q&A. You can ask your question anonymously if you don't wish to be mentioned, so that's also possible as well. But just one question in regards to classes, Owen. So you did mention that the timetable runs from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m, but how many or how long are the classes for each unit? So how many hours a week do students need to attend class?
4 hours in total, but those are in 2 by 2 hour blocks. So you might say have a 2-hour class for one unit, then maybe a short break, and then maybe another 2-hour class after that. So there'll be 2 separate 2-hour blocks scheduled during the week that are kind of paired together.
Amazing. And there was just a question came through in regards to does Deakin give out Microsoft Office student packages?
what Deakin makes available is Office 365, which is the online implementation of Microsoft Office. So when you enroll at the college, you get a Deakin University account, and then you can access Microsoft Office online using that account.
Amazing. There was just another question that came through in regards to fee help. So the Australian government did announce on the 1st of April that any enrolments from the 1st of April to the 30th of September would not include the fee help loan that was placed by the government onto the fee help. Basically, there hasn't been an announcement about that being extended. Certainly as a provider and an institution, we certainly hope that that will be the case. However, at the moment, at this stage, it is the 30th of September. So those students enrolling in October will incur that fee. In regards to the fee prices for Deakin College versus Deakin University, Deakin College is actually a private provider. Therefore, we don't have Commonwealth supported places, which means that our fees are higher than Deakin University because they're not subsidised by the government. So unfortunately, there isn't a workaround, but hopefully that does explain those two factors for you. A question for you, Owen, and this is my favourite one.
Oh, cool.
Can the Diploma of IT be packaged with AI?
So yeah, it can be, although what I'd say is we're actually looking into setting up a more formal pathway, but that hasn't started yet. But so what I'd say is there isn't a pathway currently. But what I'd say is maybe contact us more specifically about that if it's something you're interested in. But currently that's not implemented yet, but we're looking into it down the line.
Another question for you, Owen. Is there any programming language that students should learn prior, like Java or Python?
There isn't a specific one that you need to learn. I think Python is useful because there are a couple of units that use Python as an example for their units, like as in they will use Python to kind of show the ideas being expressed in the unit. Alternatively, another one is it's probably worth doing a little bit of C++, and that's just because that's covered a little bit in Introduction to Programming. Although again, it's not the focus of the unit, but it is touched upon. But I would say if you're looking for a kind of straightforward one to use to sort of get to know it, Python's a reasonable one to start with.
Amazing. There was just another question in regards to part-time study, which I can happily answer. So Owen did mention that there's 8 units that need to be completed in the diploma program. If you are an Australian student, you can study those for as long as you require. So if you wish to just study 1 unit a trimester, you can, but obviously it's going to take you longer to complete the course. A lot of Australian students, if they're working full-time or something like that, they might only want to undertake 2 units, which would then take you over 4 trimesters, which would be a year and a little bit. If you're an international student, your student visa does require you to study full-time. However, the Australian government has relaxed laws in regards to study workloads. So if you are commencing online for trimester 3, you can enroll in 2 or 3 units if you prefer. 2 units is obviously part-time, 3 units is still considered full-time. And I should mention for Australian students, 3 units is the minimum you need to study to be able to apply for any Centrelink payments. So to qualify for Oz study and things like that. So 3 is the minimum for full-time. 2 or 1 is possible if you are an international student commencing in T3. Once you arrive on shore, then it is a requirement that international students study full-time when they arrive in Australia. Beautiful. Just one more question for you, Owen.
Sure.
So obviously our trimester 3 is commencing online and will be online. What will happen if the borders reopen or classes do, or the government gives permission for classes to resume face-to-face?
Okay, so it really depends when that happens, really. But it's I'll kind of just say that trimester 3 would be online purely because let's say that the borders open in the middle. It wouldn't be, I think, good for students to kind of suddenly kind of change how we're delivering it. But as it opens up, we will begin transitioning back into it. But a lot of that does depend on the government, what they open up, and basically what the regulations are as far as attending in person. Um, so my advice at this point is, uh, it's we will deliver trimester 3 online to be consistent. But that said, as more is opened up, we can look into slowly transitioning more students back onto the college. But as to how that happens exactly is very dependent on what the government decides. So for now, I'd say think of it as online, but we'll treat it as it's opened up by doing it slowly and doing it carefully.
Beautiful, beautiful. And also too, just to add on top of that, from a marketing perspective, we are also aware that Australian embassies and visa application offices have been closed, including biometric locations. So we are aware that the embassies are behind and giving processing times of 4 to even 6 months in some countries. So we will be delivering trimester 1 online as well, particularly because we are aware that some international students may not be able to get a visa still by March intake, just depending on which country you're coming from. Best to consult your agent for advice about what's happening in your country in regards to visa applications, because it does change between the countries. So we have got that in mind as well. So if you're an international student or even an Australian student and you're I guess studying from a remote location, the pressure to come on campus when classes do resume won't be there. So you will be able to continue online for that trimester. One question for you, Owen.
Mhm.
Does the Bachelor of Cybersecurity lead into Torch or Quantum?
I'm not, I'm assuming those are companies. I'm not familiar with them. I think I'd have to look into that a little bit more. And see if our cybersecurity teacher is familiar with them. But the only honest answer I can give at this point is I'm not sure. But perhaps if you contact me outside, I can help you look into it, and we can find out.
Amazing. If anyone does have any questions after today's presentation, you will receive a recording of the presentation as well as the PowerPoint. So if you do have any questions, you can respond back to us and we're more than happy to answer them for you. Amazing. So we'll just allow a few more minutes to see if any more questions come through. And if
Mhm.
not, we'll be able to wrap it up there, Owen.
No worries. More questions. Good. Keep going.
Okay, there's just one question in regards to if anyone needs to change their bachelor course, will they be allowed? So, um, if you are studying, I guess, a diploma of commerce or business or something like that, it doesn't pathway into IT. However, if you're studying the diploma of IT, Owen, would you like to talk a little bit about, I guess, prerequisite subjects for the bachelor programs?
Sure. So certainly, like if you want to change pathway, that's doable. But the main thing is whether you've met the same core units. So, for example, cybersecurity and Bachelor of IT share 4 of the same core units, so it's not too difficult to say swap between those two. But in computer science, it only shares, I think, 2 or 3 core units with the other bachelor pathways. So normally, if you're interested in changing your pathway, speak to me or one of your teachers for advice. And normally it's best to think about that sort of thing early, mainly because when you've completed maybe 2 or 3 units, there's opportunity to kind of do the remaining core units for a different pathway. But if you've, say, progressed and have completed 7, then there's limited options. So my advice would be speak to your teachers and just get advice early as to what the best pathway is for you if you have second thoughts.
Amazing. Well, we might wrap it up there, Owen. So thank you so much for your time today. And thanks to everyone who participated. We hope you found the session useful. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us after the presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Take care.